Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of his massive warship and looked at the blue planet, spinning slowly on his main screen. His long, thin fingers moved across the control panel as he studied the data flowing in from his scout ships. This was supposed to be another easy mission. Find a primitive world, study it for a few days, then decide if it was worth adding to the Empire. The planet looked beautiful from space. Swirling white clouds covered most of the surface, and beneath them he could see green land and blue water. His sensors told him there was life down there. Lots of life. But more importantly, there was intelligent life. "What do we know about them?" Veltar asked his science officer. "They call themselves humans, Commander," the officer replied, his voice carrying the same tone of boredom that came with cataloging yet another backward species. "They have just barely reached their own moon. Their technology is primitive. They still burn fossil fuels for energy. They fight among themselves constantly." Veltar nodded. This was exactly what he expected. In his 300 years of service to the Zephyrian Empire, he had seen this same pattern dozens of times. Young species always followed the same path. They would develop basic technology, fight wars over resources, and eventually destroy themselves or become easy targets for more advanced civilizations. "How many of them are there?" he asked. "Nearly 8 billion, Commander. They are spread across 7 large land masses. They have formed different groups that they call nations. These nations often fight each other." "Perfect," Veltar said with satisfaction. "A divided species is always easier to control. Begin the demonstration protocol. Disable their communication satellites. I want them to know we are here, but I want them confused and scared." Far below, Captain Jake Morrison was having a normal day aboard the research vessel Endeavour. The ship was not big or impressive. It was designed for deep space monitoring, not for fighting. Jake and his small crew spent their days watching for asteroids that might threaten Earth and studying the space around their solar system. Jake was a career military man who had transferred to space duty 5 years ago. He was 42 years old with gray starting to show in his black hair. His crew respected him because he was calm under pressure and always put their safety first. "Captain," called Lisa Chen from her position at the navigation station, "I'm getting some weird readings on the long-range sensors." Lisa was the best navigator Jake had ever worked with. She was 28 years old and had graduated top of her class from the Space Academy. If she said something was weird, Jake paid attention. "What kind of weird?" Jake asked, walking over to look at her screen. "Multiple large objects moving toward us from the outer system. Really large. And they're not following any orbital pattern." "I recognize," Paul Williams looked up from his engineering station. Paul was 35 and had been working on spacecraft longer than anyone else on the crew. He was the kind of engineer who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. "How large are we talking about?" Paul asked. Lisa's fingers moved quickly across her controls. "The biggest one is at least 10 times the size of anything we've ever built, and there are 12 of them." Jake felt his stomach tighten. "Are you sure they're artificial? Could they be asteroids?" "No, sir," Lisa said, shaking her head. "They're definitely manufactured, and Captain, they're slowing down as they approach. Whatever they are, they're under intelligent control." At that moment, every screen on the Endeavour went dark. The communication system died. Even the backup systems failed. The only thing still working was life support and basic navigation. "What just happened?" Jake demanded. Paul was already moving, checking every system on the ship. "Someone hit us with some kind of electromagnetic pulse, but it was surgical. They left just enough systems running to keep us alive." "They?" Jake asked. "Has to be whoever is in those ships," Paul replied. "This wasn't random. Someone wanted to disable our communications without killing us." Lisa managed to get her sensor array back online using manual controls. "Captain, you need to see this." On her screen, Jake could see space around Earth filling with massive dark shapes. The ships were like nothing he had ever seen before. They were smooth and curved, made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Each one was easily the size of a city. "My God," Jake whispered. "It gets worse, Captain," Lisa said. "I'm detecting similar pulses hitting every satellite around Earth. All communications are down. Every GPS satellite, every weather monitor, every military satellite, they've blinded us. Jake's mind raced. This was first contact with an alien species. But it was not the peaceful meeting that scientists had always hoped for. These aliens had announced themselves by cutting off all of Earth's communications. That was not the action of a friendly species. "Paul, how long until you can get our communications back online?" Jake asked. "Give me 20 minutes, Captain. I can reroute power through the backup systems." "Do it, Lisa. Plot a course back toward Earth. But keep us hidden behind this asteroid field." "Yes, sir." As Paul worked frantically to restore their systems, Jake watched the alien ships position themselves around Earth. They moved with purpose and precision. This was not an exploration mission. This was the beginning of an invasion. On the bridge of his command ship, Veltar smiled as he watched the primitive planet go dark. All their satellites were disabled. All their communications were cut. Now the real work could begin. "Send a probe to that small ship hiding in the asteroid field," he ordered. "It's time we introduced ourselves to these humans." News of Captain Morrison's successful attack on the alien probe spread across Earth faster than the aliens had expected. Even with most communications down, humans found ways to share information. Radio operators, emergency broadcasts, and military networks carried the story to every corner of the planet. Colonel Ryan Parker was in the Pentagon's Emergency Command Center when the report came in. He was 45 years old and had spent 20 years in the military. He had fought in 3 different wars, but nothing had prepared him for an alien invasion. "Sir, we're getting confirmation from multiple sources," reported his aide, Lieutenant Sam Brooks. "A civilian research vessel engaged alien forces and destroyed multiple enemy units." "How is that possible?" Ryan asked. "We were told these aliens have technology far beyond ours. Apparently they weren't expecting us to fight back, sir. The research vessel used improvised weapons and creative tactics." Ryan felt a spark of hope for the first time since the crisis began. If a small research ship could fight off alien probes, maybe humanity had a chance after all. "Get me a direct line to every military base on the planet," he ordered, "and find me a way to contact that research vessel. I want to know exactly how they did it." Dr. Amanda Foster was working around the clock to decode more alien transmissions. She had managed to piece together enough of their language to understand basic concepts. What she was learning made her blood run cold. "Kevin, look at this," she called to her assistant. "I've decoded more of their communications." Kevin hurried over to her workstation. "What did you find?" "They're not explorers," Amanda said grimly. "They're conquerors. They call themselves the Zephyrian Empire, and we're not their first target." The decoded messages revealed that the Zephyrians had conquered dozens of other species. They had a standard procedure for dealing with primitive civilizations. First, they would disable communications. Then they would demand surrender. If the species submitted, they would be enslaved. If they resisted, they would be destroyed. "They think we're just another easy target," Amanda realized. "They've done this so many times they expect us to surrender immediately. But we're not surrendering," Kevin pointed out. "No, we're not. And I don't think they know how to handle that." Far from Earth, Captain Nick Sullivan was commanding a cargo hauler called the Iron Horse. Nick was 51 years old and had been hauling cargo between Earth and the asteroid mines for 15 years. He was tough, practical, and not easily scared. When the news about the alien invasion reached the mining stations, most workers wanted to run and hide. But Nick had a different idea. "Listen up, everyone," he announced over the mining station's communication system. "These aliens think they can just walk in and take over our home. Well, I've got news for them." Nick's crew gathered around him. There was Betty Price, his engineer, who could repair anything with tools and determination. There was Danny Carter, his pilot, who had never met a flying machine he couldn't handle. And there was Maria Santos, his cargo specialist, who knew how to move heavy equipment better than anyone in the system. "What are you thinking, Nick?" Betty asked. "I'm thinking we take our mining ships and turn them into weapons," Nick replied. "These haulers are built to carry tons of cargo. What if instead of cargo we loaded them with explosives and rammed them into alien ships?" "That's suicide," Danny protested. "Maybe," Nick said. "But if we're going to die anyway, let's take some of these invaders with us." Word of Nick's plan spread quickly through the mining stations. Within hours, dozens of cargo crews had volunteered to join what they were calling the asteroid fleet. These were not military ships. They were working vessels operated by miners, haulers, and engineers. But they were crewed by humans who refused to surrender. Back on Earth, the aliens were learning that humans did not behave like other species they had conquered. When Zephyrian troops landed in major cities, they expected the local populations to flee in terror. Instead, they found organized resistance. In New York, police officer Tom Bradley organized his fellow officers into guerrilla units. They used their knowledge of the city to launch hit-and-run attacks on alien patrols. The aliens had superior weapons, but they did not know the streets like the humans did. In London, firefighter Claire Murphy led civilian volunteers in a campaign to rescue people from alien detention centers. She used her training in emergency response to coordinate complex operations under dangerous conditions. In Tokyo, engineer Hiroshi Tanaka figured out how to jam alien communication signals using modified radio equipment. His work allowed human resistance groups to operate without being detected by alien surveillance. Commander Veltar was receiving reports from across the planet, and none of them made sense. Every species the Zephyrians had conquered had followed the same pattern. When faced with superior technology, they surrendered. When their leaders were captured, they submitted. When their cities were occupied, they accepted defeat. But humans were different. Instead of surrendering, they adapted. Instead of submitting, they organized. Instead of accepting defeat, they found new ways to fight. "Commander," his science officer reported, "we have lost contact with 7 more patrols in the past hour." "How?" Veltar demanded. "The humans are using tactics we have never encountered. They hide in underground tunnels. They use their own vehicles as weapons. They coordinate attacks using primitive radio signals that are difficult for us to track. And what about the civilian cargo ships that are approaching our fleet?" 23 vessels, Commander. They appear to be unarmed cargo haulers. But they are not responding to our warnings to turn back. Veltar looked at the tactical display. The human cargo ships were accelerating directly toward his fleet. This made no sense. Civilian vessels should be fleeing from military ships, not attacking them. "Are they planning to ram us?" he asked. "It appears so, Commander. But that would be suicide. Unless they're not planning to survive," Veltar realized. "Signal all ships to open fire on those cargo vessels immediately." The Zephyrian fleet began firing on Nick Sullivan's asteroid fleet. The mining ships had no shields and minimal armor. They began exploding one by one under the alien weapons fire. But the humans had planned for this. Each cargo ship was loaded with mining explosives and metal debris. When they exploded, they created clouds of high-speed shrapnel that damaged nearby alien ships. Nick Sullivan's Iron Horse was the last cargo ship to reach the alien fleet. As Zephyrian weapons tore through his ship's hull, Nick aimed directly at the largest enemy vessel and triggered his cargo hold full of mining charges. The explosion was visible from Earth. When the light faded, one of the alien command ships was drifting dead in space. For the first time in his 300-year career, Commander Veltar felt genuine fear. These humans were not like any species he had ever encountered. They did not fear death. They did not accept defeat. And they were learning to hurt his fleet in ways he had never imagined possible. Commander Veltar stood on his bridge and watched his perfect invasion plan fall apart. The tactical display showed red warning lights across half his fleet. 3 command ships were dead in space. Dozens of smaller vessels had been destroyed or damaged. And somehow, impossibly, the humans were winning. "Commander," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the humans. They're demanding that we surrender." Veltar's jaw dropped. In 300 years of conquest, no primitive species had ever demanded that the Zephyrian Empire surrender to them. The very idea was impossible to accept. "Ignore them," he ordered. "Focus all fire on their military installations. We end this now." But even as he gave the order, Veltar knew something fundamental had changed. His science officer was right. These humans were not like any species they had encountered before. They did not break when faced with superior technology. They adapted. They learned, and worst of all, they were learning fast. Down on Earth, Colonel Ryan Parker was coordinating the largest military operation in human history. Every nation had put aside their differences to fight the alien invasion. American, Chinese, Russian, and European forces were working together like never before. "Sir, we have confirmation," Lieutenant Brooks reported. "The civilian mining fleet successfully damaged 3 alien command ships, and we've captured intact alien technology from the wreckage." "Excellent," Ryan replied. "What are our engineers saying about the alien tech?" "They're saying it's not as advanced as we thought, sir. More advanced than ours, yes, but not impossibly so. We can understand it, and we can copy it." This was the news Ryan had been hoping for. Human engineers and scientists were already working around the clock to reverse engineer captured alien weapons and technology. If they could level the playing field, humanity might actually have a chance. Dr. Amanda Foster was part of the team, analyzing alien technology when she made a discovery that changed everything. She was studying a damaged alien computer core when she found something unexpected. "Kevin, you need to see this," she called to her assistant. "What is it?" Kevin asked, looking over her shoulder at the alien data. "It's their database. Information about every species they've conquered. And look at this pattern." Amanda brought up a series of reports from previous Zephyrian conquests. Every species had followed the same pattern. When faced with the alien fleet, they had tried to negotiate. When negotiation failed, they had surrendered. When some groups resisted, they had given up after losing a few battles. "They've never faced a species that fights like we do," Amanda realized. Every other species they conquered was reasonable. They calculated the odds, realized they couldn't win, and gave up. But humans don't think that way. "We're too stubborn to quit," Kevin said with a grim smile. "Exactly, and that's why they're losing." Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison was leading what the humans called the Makeshift Fleet. It was a collection of every armed spacecraft humanity could put into space. Military vessels, converted civilian, ships, cargo haulers fitted with weapons, and even some captured alien craft that human engineers had figured out how to operate. Jake's original research vessel, the Endeavor, was now equipped with alien energy weapons taken from destroyed enemy ships. His crew had become experts at improvised combat tactics. Lisa Chen could navigate through asteroid fields at speeds that terrified even veteran pilots. Paul Williams had become a master at combining human and alien technology in ways that should have been impossible. "Captain," Lisa reported, "I have a target. The main alien command ship is moving into range." "Good," Jake replied. "Signal the fleet. All ships attack together." The human fleet charged toward the Zephyrian command ship. It was not a coordinated military attack. It was more like a bar fight in space. Human ships came from every direction, using every tactic they could think of. Some fired weapons, others tried to ram. A few even launched their escape pods loaded with explosives. Commander Veltar watched the chaotic human attack with growing horror. His tactical computers could not predict what the humans would do next, because their tactics made no logical sense. They sacrificed ships to damage his fleet. They turned civilian vessels into weapons. They fought with a desperate creativity that his military training had never prepared him for. "Commander," his science officer reported, "the humans have boarded Deck 7. "What? How?" "They launched escape pods at our ship. When we shot down the pods, the explosions created breaches in our hull. Human soldiers were inside the pods wearing pressure suits. They used our own weapons fire to get inside our ship." Veltar felt his command crumbling around him. The humans had just used his fleet's weapons against his own ship. They had turned his defensive fire into a boarding action. This level of tactical improvisation was beyond anything in Zephyrian military doctrine. "Security teams to Deck 7, he ordered. "Repel the boarders." But the human boarding party was already moving through his ship. They were led by a squad of soldiers who had trained for zero-gravity combat. These humans moved through the alien ship like they belonged there, using captured alien weapons and improvised tactics. Within an hour, the humans had captured the ship's engine room and weapons control. They were systematically taking over his command vessel from the inside. "Commander," his communications officer said, "the humans are demanding that you surrender your ship." Veltar looked around his bridge. Half his crew was dead or wounded. His ship was damaged and partially under human control. His fleet was scattered and fighting for survival against an enemy that refused to follow any logical rules of warfare. For the first time in his career, Veltar considered surrender. But then he remembered his duty to the Empire. He could not let these primitive humans defeat a Zephyrian fleet. It would be the greatest military disaster in their history. "Open a channel to Imperial Command," he ordered. "Sir?" "Do it now." The communication link opened, connecting Veltar to the highest levels of Zephyrian leadership. When the Imperial Admiral appeared on his screen, Veltar could see the expectation of victory in the older commander's eyes. "Report." "Commander Veltar," the Admiral said. "I trust the primitive world has surrendered?" Veltar took a deep breath. What he was about to say would end his career, but it might save what remained of his fleet. "Admiral," he said slowly, "these creatures are not like the others. They do not surrender. They do not break. They adapt faster than we can react. They turn our own weapons against us. They fight with a desperation and creativity that our tactics cannot counter." "What are you saying, Commander?" Veltar looked at his tactical display one more time. Another of his ships had just exploded under human attack. His own vessel was being overrun by human soldiers who had improvised their way through every defense he had. "I am saying, Admiral, that we have made a terrible mistake. These humans are not primitives to be conquered. They are something else entirely, something dangerous. Commander, you will complete your mission." "No, Admiral," Veltar said quietly. "We will not. My recommendation to the Empire is clear and urgent. Mark this system as forbidden. These creatures must never be approached again. Whatever you do, do not engage them." Veltar paused, looking one last time at the chaos of battle surrounding his dying fleet. "Admiral, my final order regarding humanity is simple. Run." The Zephyrian fleet retreated from Earth in complete chaos. Ships that had arrived in perfect formation now fled in every direction. Some vessels were so badly damaged they barely made it out of the solar system. Others abandoned their wounded, and dead in their desperate rush to escape. Commander Veltar's command ship was one of the last to leave. Human soldiers had captured most of his vessel, but they allowed him to escape with the surviving crew members. It was not mercy, exactly. The humans wanted the Zephyrians to spread the word about what had happened at Earth. As his battered ship limped away from the blue planet, Veltar sent his final report to Imperial Command. The message was brief but clear. Earth was to be marked as a forbidden system. Under no circumstances should any Zephyrian ship approach human space again. Down on Earth, humanity was celebrating its first victory against an alien invasion. But the celebration was mixed with the sobering realization that they were not alone in the universe. And if the Zephyrians existed, there were certainly other alien species out there as well. Dr. Amanda Foster was working with an international team of scientists to study the alien technology left behind. The Zephyrians had abandoned dozens of ships and countless pieces of equipment in their hasty retreat. For human scientists, it was like Christmas morning. "Kevin, look at this," Amanda called to her assistant. She was studying an alien computer core that contained detailed star maps. "This shows the locations of dozens of other alien civilizations." Kevin peered at the display. "Some of them are marked as conquered territories. Others are listed as potential targets. And now we know where they all are." Amanda realized. "We can warn them about the Zephyrians, or we can make contact on our own terms." The captured alien database revealed that the galaxy was full of intelligent life. There were trading empires, scientific consortiums, and military alliances spanning hundreds of star systems. Earth had been completely unaware of this vast galactic civilization, but now the galactic civilization was becoming aware of Earth. Captain Jake Morrison had been promoted to Admiral and placed in charge of Earth's new Space Defense Force. His first assignment was to organize the study and reverse engineering of captured alien technology. His second assignment was to prepare for the possibility that other alien species might come to Earth. Admiral, reported his aide, Commander Lisa Chen, who had also been promoted after the battle. We've successfully tested the first human-built, faster-than-light engine. It's based on captured Zephyrian technology, but our engineers have improved it. Improved it how? Jake asked. It's faster and more efficient than the original design. Apparently, the Zephyrians built their engines for reliability, not performance. Human engineers built ours for speed. Jake smiled. That sounded like humanity. Take someone else's technology and immediately try to make it better. Engineer Paul Williams, now a civilian contractor for the Space Defense Force, was leading the team that combined human and alien technology. The results were impressive. Human computers were more advanced than alien computers. Human materials science was actually superior in some areas, and human creativity was finding new applications for alien technology that the original designers had never imagined. We're not just copying their tech, Paul explained to Jake during a briefing. We're improving it. Our ships are going to be faster, tougher, and more versatile than anything the Zephyrians ever built. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the news of the Zephyrian defeat was spreading through alien communication networks. The story grew with each telling, but the core facts remained the same. A primitive species called humans had defeated a Zephyrian invasion fleet using improvised tactics and sheer determination. Other alien species reacted to this news in different ways. Some, like the peaceful Centauran Federation, were curious about this new species that had stood up to the Zephyrians. Others, like the militaristic Rigel Empire, saw humans as a potential threat that needed to be monitored carefully. But all alien civilizations agreed on one point: humans were not to be underestimated. 3 years after the Zephyrian invasion, the first peaceful alien contact occurred. A small exploration ship from the Centauran Federation approached Earth broadcasting messages of friendship in dozens of languages. The ship was unarmed and moved slowly, making it clear that this was not an invasion. Dr. Amanda Foster, now Earth's Director of Alien Relations, led the first diplomatic meeting with the Centaurans. The aliens were tall, thin beings, with large eyes and gentle voices. They had been exploring the galaxy for centuries, making peaceful contact with dozens of species. We heard about your conflict with the Zephyrians, the Centauran ambassador explained through a translation device. We wanted to meet the species that accomplished what no one else has done. What do you mean? Amanda asked. You defeated them. Completely. The Zephyrian Empire has never suffered a defeat like that. They have marked your system as forbidden and issued warnings to all other species to avoid human space. Amanda felt a mixture of pride and concern. What kind of warnings? That humans are unpredictable, that they do not follow standard military doctrine, that they fight with a desperation and creativity that makes them extremely dangerous. And what do you think? Amanda asked. The Centauran ambassador made a sound that the translator indicated was laughter. We think that any species capable of defeating the Zephyrians is worth knowing. We would like to establish diplomatic relations and trade agreements with Earth. Over the following months, more alien species made contact with Earth. Some came seeking trade partnerships. Others wanted to study human technology and tactics. A few came simply out of curiosity about the species that had made the mighty Zephyrian Empire turn and run. Admiral Jake Morrison commanded the first human embassy ship to leave the solar system. The vessel was called Indomitable, a name chosen to reflect humanity's refusal to surrender during the invasion. The ship carried diplomats, scientists, and a small military escort to the Centauran home system. As the Indomitable prepared for its departure, Jake reflected on how much had changed since that first day when alien ships appeared around Earth. Humanity had gone from being completely isolated to being one of the most talked-about species in the galaxy. Admiral, Commander Lisa Chen reported from the navigation station, all systems are ready. We're prepared for our first faster-than-light jump. Excellent. Jake replied. "Take us out, Commander. Let's go show the galaxy what humans can do when we're not fighting for our survival." The Indomitable engaged its faster-than-light drive and disappeared from Earth's solar system. Behind them, they left a planet that was no longer isolated and afraid. Earth was now part of a vast galactic community, and humanity had earned their place through courage, determination, and their refusal to give up when faced with impossible odds. In the years that followed, human ships would explore dozens of star systems. Human diplomats would negotiate treaties with alien governments. Human scientists would make discoveries that would benefit species across the galaxy, but they would always be remembered as the species that made the Zephyrian Empire run. The species that proved that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe is a civilization that simply refuses to quit. The galaxy had learned an important lesson about humanity. When humans are cornered, they do not surrender. They fight back, and they fight back in ways that no one expects. It was a lesson that no alien species would ever forget.